Fallout and its sequel, Fallout 2, are rich with great stories and memorable locations. The game worlds combined cover an astounding amount of area and explore many different cultures that inhabit the wasteland post-war. With this much open area, there have to be some places some travelers would rather not visit. Whether it's wasteland myths, or if these legends hold weight, we are going to look at 10 super spooky classic Fallout locations. Lying east of the hub and shrouded by thick fog is Necropolis, the city of the dead. What was known pre-war as Bakersfield now lies in ruin. The stench of death is enough to keep most wandering souls and caravans away. Those brave or foolhardy enough to enter the city would see the actual danger: the ghouls. Walking zombies shamble down the alleys and through the broken buildings of this wretched hellscape. Radiation sickness plagues most who visit. This is why so many who have come here have never returned. Most ghouls on the surface are immediately hostile to outsiders, and the sheer number of them is enough to overwhelm even a well-sized caravan. During the Great War on October 23, 2077, as the people who qualified and could afford it took shelter in Vault-Tech's underground vaults, those in Vault 12 under Bakersfield were no different. Until dwellers would start to realize the flaw of this vault. The door did not seal properly. A ploy from Vault-Tech, who was known to do sinister things in the guise of social experiments. As expected, people rushed the vault to try to get protection from the nasty effects of the Great War. This helped against the most devastating parts of the war, but it did not protect them entirely, as soon toxic gas would seep in through the vault's unsealed door. The dwellers of Vault 12 would begin to lose their hair, falling in clumps from their heads. Their skin would blister and flake, causing permanent damage, most of the time falling off as well. This would transform them into the first ghouls we would see in the Fallout series. This, of course, before it was retconned by Bethesda with Desmond Lockhart and Edward Winter. Now, groups of these ghouls hold different roles here, some cowering underground, some showing strength and rank in numbers with de facto town leaders set. Unfortunately, Vault 12 is too important to stay a secret for too long. It has garnered the attention of the mutant leader, the Master, and he has sent a unit of mutants to seize control of the area, as if Necropolis wasn't dangerous enough already. The vault itself is guarded by two glowing ghouls, shunned by the other ghouls and left to their own devices down here. What makes Vault 12 so important is the functioning water chip that is still inside. Ever since the water pump in Necropolis broke down, this vault's water chip has been the only source of water for the city, and this brings some unwanted attention to Necropolis and its citizens. So heed the warning of the caravan guards and try to pass by Necropolis in the daytime. If you can smell it, you are too close. If, for some reason, you do find yourself in the area, head for the sewers, especially at night, unless you want to feed the ghouls. All around the wasteland, we can find signs of the Great War. None are really as prevalent as the GLOW, or West Tech Research Facility. Pre-war, this was the site of advanced weapons and biomedical sciences research, later becoming one of the biggest contractors of the American government, working on things like the T-51B power armor and the Pan-Immunity Virion project, later known as the Forced Evolutionary Virus, FEV. Now, all that remains on the surface is a giant hole in the ground, where a warhead made contact with the facility and penetrated deep into the lower recesses of the base. Radiation clouds the area, quickly taking control of any being that has somehow made it this far. Inside, we can see what remains of the offices that ran this site. The body of Sergeant Dennis Allen can be found still inside his defunct suit of T-51B power armor. A holodisc can be found that recalls the Brotherhood of Steel's expedition to the area on his corpse. Lower into the base, we find the test chambers for the projects that took place here and the long-dormant security for the site. Robots. We can also find Zax 1.2, a supercomputer that acts as the mind for this base, that is still functional today. Primarily used for research, Zax eventually became a true AI and an avid chess player, doomed to spend eternity surrounded by the destruction of the Great War. Most people just know to stay away from the glow. It's not that hard to do. The site comes to life if you go down low enough though, and that could be a cool thing to see, even if it is the last thing you see. Many Wastelanders have stories of giant supermutants, behemoth green men hostile to all who encounter them. Rumors of mutants attacking caravans scare most potential guards away in places like the Hub. Few people seem to know where they are coming from, but a lot of people seem to think they are being created somewhere, and that place is Mariposa Military Base. This top-secret military base was constructed to house the Forced Evolutionary Virus, or FEV, by the United States military, to further test the research done by Westech, testing on human subjects, often military prisoners. This led then Captain Roger Maxson to pick up the pieces. At the time of the Great War, while Maxson was interrogating head researcher Leon von Felden, the base would go dark, losing all communications with the outside world. Though the base did offer protection from the blast of the war and the subsequent radiation flood that follows, Maxson did not trust that China would not finish the job, and he ordered the dead to be buried outside the site. He would then take the remaining crew and their families to the Lost Hills bunker and form the Brotherhood of Steel. Over the years, Mariposa started to deteriorate due to the elements. Wildlife would get into the base and mutate from exposure to the FEV vats, attacking settlements and caravans. This led to an expedition that was ran by Harold, which brings Dr. Richard Gray into the story. Dr. Gray was one of the men who accompanied Harold to Mariposa for his expedition. Entering the base, Harold had not planned for the automated security. The defenses of Mariposa were still very much online. Everyone besides Harold and Gray was killed when the security measures were engaged, with Harold being knocked unconscious and Gray being thrown into the vats of FEV after a crane had fallen into them. The doctor would manage to crawl into the control room, and with the way the FEV was affecting his intellect, he would soon Neuralink with the Mariposa central computer. Gray started to plan his idea of unity, the forceful evolution of all humans into one perfect race. By removing all differences from the human species, the idea is that petty strife will no longer exist. Dr. Gray also hinted at an alternative to his plan. Every bit of biological and technological material he came across, he added to his biomass. Perhaps that was what he wanted most of all, becoming one with everything. As wanderers began to stumble into the base, Gray would abduct them, dipping them into vats of FEV and turning them into the first super mutants we would see. Mariposa Military Base would act as a base of operations for this, as Richard Gray, or the Master as he is called now, was removed to a demonstration vault under Los Angeles. The lieutenant would be given control of Mariposa, perhaps one of, if not the most intelligent super mutant to ever live. This officer in the Master's army would rebuild Mariposa to its former glory, until the Vault Dweller came through and reduced it to little more than a pile of rubble, at least on the surface. Enter the Enclave, who unsurprisingly had records of Mariposa Military Base and were able to locate the ruins in July of 2236. Scouts would dive into the base, with the Enclave sending scientists and researchers to comb the base while assault teams gathered slaves, including Melchior, to start the excavation. Many people, including Melchior, were exposed to the FEV that seeped from the site. Later, and after the mutations began to take effect, Melchior would come to the conclusion that the Enclave would likely execute the mutants after the excavation was complete. He started to hide weapons for the coming confrontation. The Enclave would eventually find a pure sample of the Forced Evolutionary Virus and leave the site, but Melchior's fears were well placed. The Enclave suffered heavy casualties when trying to engage with the mutants, and they left the group sealed inside Mariposa, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to snoop around. The large church that stands in Los Angeles is hard to miss. This is known as the Cathedral, and it is home and base to the Children of the Cathedral, a group of people who follow the unity plan introduced by the Master. Led by Morpheus, a former Rippers raider, the Children of the Cathedral are a cult-like following, infiltrating settlements and convincing wastelanders to join the cause. The Master saw great potential in a religious cult spreading his message. They would set up shop above the demonstration vault created by Vault-Tec in Los Angeles, the Cathedral above acting as a grand haven for their indoctrinations, while keeping the secret of the Master and his activities safely hidden below in the vault. LA was the site Vault-Tec chose to build their demonstration vault, acting as one of the critical components to really kick off Project Safe House. The vault was fully functional but designed differently than others used in action during the Great War, though people were able to hide here during the blasts and protect themselves from the devastation of the war. These people would go on to form Aditum and the Regulators, with the Master finding the Regulators and eventually gaining access to the vault, neurolinking with its central computer and slowly growing to become biologically a part of his surroundings. Propaganda fills the chambers of the church. Many souls led astray with promises of unity and safety. The Master sits below, pulling strings, using everyone in the cathedral as pawns in his game to achieve his ultimate goal, catching the attention of the followers of the Apocalypse, who have also set up here to keep an eye on things. This would come to an end when the Vault Dweller from Vault 13 would lay waste to the Cathedral as well as the underground vault that held the Master. The stories never fade though. When it comes to religion and politics, war never changes. Just outside Modoc lies a farm. Human bodies can be found impaled on spikes littered throughout the field, with a lone shack resting in the center. On closer inspection, the bodies turn out to be nothing more than fakes, dummies covered in Brahmin innards. This doesn't make this discovery any less creepy. Why would anybody go through all this trouble? Just to keep wanderers away? This location is known to locals as the Ghost Farm. While exploring the shack, a concealed trap door opens, leading to quite the fall. Though the patrol that makes the rounds at midnight may find you before you take the plunge, both will result in meeting a group that calls this place home, the Slags. During the Great War, a group of people sealed themselves off here, an event they call the Sealing. These Slags are their descendants. Living primarily underground, they have grown sensitive to natural light on the surface, and through the years, they have mutated. Eventually, realizing they couldn't sustain themselves, they broke the seal and formed a farm on the surface. To most people, mainly in the town of Modoc, the farm seemed to appear out of nowhere, which is where it started to get the name the Ghost Farm. Karl from Modoc would later move into the farmhouse to prevent the crops from rotting, as the people from Modoc assumed the farm was abandoned shortly after being built. The Slags, not wanting to hurt the intruder, came up with a plan, covering themselves with glowing fungus and roaming around the farm like ghosts. Karl began to tell stories of these figures taking care of the farming duties at night, which led to ridicule from his peers in Modoc, until Karl quit showing up to town. This led to the people of Modoc going to investigate the farm, finding the bodies crucified and impaled around the farm, which they assumed to be real. With no sign of Karl at the farm, he was presumed dead. In reality, he had been drinking away his troubles at a bar in the den. Ghostly wails and figures can still be seen at the farm by people in the area, leading most to avoid it at all costs. Many cities and towns are ruled by vice in the wasteland. The Den is no different. Housing many walks of life, including slavers, the city suffers from a lousy reputation. Drug dealers thrive in this settlement, leading to small and large gangs. No real leadership seems to be present beyond Mom or the slaver leader Metzger. Orphans litter the street, trying to pickpocket anything they can to make it through the day. In an abandoned house here, around midnight, a ghostly apparition of a young woman will appear. This is Anna Winslow. She seems to be looking for a locket that has gone missing, and no matter how hard somebody tries, she won't hear what they are saying. She's deaf to the world. Investigating this, we can find that a young thug named Joey has stolen the locket from the house. And telling him about the recent hauntings will give him the spooks, resulting in him giving the jewelry to the Chosen One. Once this is returned to Anna, she will be able to leave this plane of existence. Her bones will now be sprawled on the floor. The Chosen One should take these bones and bury them in her empty grave, truly laying the soul to rest. The den is filled with the sorrow of slaves and addicts. The spirit of Anna Winslow will finally lay at rest. At least someone will hear. The cries of the slaves are enough to sway most travelers. The stories of ghosts are just the icing on the cake. Many flock to the biggest little city in the world, the real hub of vice and sin in the wasteland, New Reno. Ran by organized crime families and fueled by drugs, prostitution, and alcohol, New Reno is home to some of the lowest forms of depravity in the wasteland. Just outside Reno lies a particularly creepy location, known as Golgotha, the place of the skull. Named after the hill Christ was crucified on, this site is a mass burial ground for those who ran afoul in New Reno. Too many debts with the mob families that run the city, or perhaps just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. These bodies now rest here. Interestingly, all that remains of the road here in Golgotha forms a cross. Perhaps that is what helped establish the name. Whatever the case, the mob reputation mixed with the religious stigma keeps most wanderers from this area. So keep that in mind the next time you are in New Reno. You wouldn't want to end up as an inhabitant of this godforsaken place. Very few of Vault-Tec's vaults operate as planned. Vault 8 was one of those vaults. Opening as scheduled in 2091, the dwellers used the GEC issued to the vault to start what would become a very established city. Like all situations in the Wasteland, appearances can be deceiving. The real horror of Vault City lies in elitism. The leadership claims Vault 8 received its all-clear signal from surface sensors. It could have been the Enclave that sent the message, as reports vary according to who you talk to. The Enclave has unique access to Vault computers, which would allow them to send those types of signals. Using the Garden of Eden creation kit, they were able to build Vault City around Vault 8, adding protection and prosperity not usually seen in the Wasteland. Despite all of the technological and medical advantages, when entering the city we can see sick and dying people, most locked in cages. These are the everyday citizens of Vault City. They are not considered to be on the same level as the dwellers who live deeper inside the city. These people are often locked away or punished for small crimes with slavery. In true Wasteland fashion, Vault City shows that the more prosperous a city is, the more corrupt it often is, letting people die in the streets instead of giving them medical care they could so quickly provide, rehabilitating people who partake in petty crimes with long-term slavery. Step easily when you make your way around Vault City. Spending the rest of your life in a cage while watching a group prosper is genuinely a horrifying thought. Beneath Mount Whitney lies Vault 13, one of the most legendary locations in the Wasteland. Many mysterious things have happened here, including the disappearing of the Vault-Tec-issued water purification chip that supplied drinking water to the vault, a problem that was solved by the Vault Dweller. Vault 13 was to remain closed until the subjects were needed by the Enclave as a control group. The actions of the Vault Dweller mixed that up a bit. This didn't stop the Enclave from sending a signal to the central computer of Vault 13, giving the all-clear to leave the vault in 2241. The remaining dwellers, led by the spokesman of Vault 13, Martin Frobisher, were led into a room to watch the Vault-Tec tutorial video about leaving the vault. The next day, as the dwellers opened Vault 13, they were greeted by an Enclave assault team, killing 3 of the residents and capturing the rest. To guard their interest in the site, the Enclave would drop an intelligent Deathclaw unit, keeping unwanted visitors away from the vault. Bruthar, the leader of these Deathclaws, widely ignored the objectives given by the Enclave, allowing many humans to find refuge in the vault. This would not last, as Frank Horrigan, along with Enclave soldiers, would eliminate all of the Deathclaw unit stationed at the vault. The shadow government that is the Enclave is scary enough. There is something a little more unsettling about talking intelligent Deathclaws. Though the group was widely peaceful, it is hard to imagine the raw intellect possessed by Deathclaws that would even allow this to be possible, making the creatures much more intimidating. An old oil refinery sits next to the shore. It hides a deep secret that could be fatal to learn about. This site is known as Navarro. It acts as a refueling station for vertibirds and an isolated base of operations for the Enclave, a shadow government of the pre-war United States. The sheer number of Enclave troops here is enough to give anyone the creeps. The lone figure that stands guard by the former gas station, dressed in robes, has also given many Wastelanders a fright. The Enclave themselves have a creepy presence, using brute force with little regard. Most of the base here is underground. The landing pads can be found for the vertibirds being worked on here. The base acts as a direct connection to the Enclave-ran oil rig located over the world's last accessible underwater oil field in the Pacific Ocean, about 175 miles off the coast of California. This naval base was the leading site of the Enclave's operations, built to be completely self-sufficient, holding all of the Wastelanders that the Enclave had abducted. The group kept it cleverly disguised as an oil rig, keeping digital tabs on all other Enclave installations from the computers located here. Frank Horrigan resides here. When not terrorizing the mainland, he goes about his daily business here and is not too keen on visitors. Horrigan's job is to protect the Enclave and, above all else, President Richardson. The Secret Service agent was exposed to FEV during the excavation of Mariposa military base. Afterward, he was sealed in armor to match his physique. He has been known to tear Deathclaws apart with his bare hands and is undoubtedly the most deadly creature to ever walk the Wasteland. Vice President Byrd and President Richardson are stationed here as well, de facto leaders of the Enclave, laying claim to the old world titles and believing themselves to be the leaders of the United States of America. The Enclave is shrouded in mystery and act any way they want to get what they need. There is not too much the rest of the Wasteland can do about it either, As shown in the oil rig, the Enclave have no qualms with kidnapping wanderers and subjecting them to any type of testing they want. Not even children are safe from the brunt of their force. A real shadow over the wastes. Thank you for watching this spooky Fallout video. I have always loved these games, and it has been great to go back through these places and to find the ones that gave me a little more creepy feelings than others. If you liked what you saw, leave a thumbs up on the video, as this can really help the channel out. And think about subscribing if you want to see similar content. And for those who want to support more directly, there are links to Patreon and YouTube channel memberships below, as well as some fresh gear if you need some Mantis merch in your life. Thanks again for watching. I will see you on the next one. It has been Mantis.
I gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day you die, you gon' touch the sky. You gon' touch the sky, baby girl. Testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day you die, you gon' touch the sky.